Welcome you all for an analysis of Keats' letter to Shelley on August 16, 1820. John Keats is a paragon figure in the realm of English romantic poetry. Yes, there is no doubt that he is the perfect example of the romantic poetry. Keats has devoted his short life to the perfection of a poetry marked by vivid imagery and great sensuous appeal. That is, he affects the aesthetic senses rather than the intellect. His untimely death from tuberculosis at 25 years old, with leaving an impressive amount of high quality poetry, plays a role in his reputation as the ultimate romantic poet. He lived a relatively short life despite producing the most innovative poetry of his era. The Biography of Keats. Keats and his siblings, George, Tom, and Francis, lost their father when he died after a fall from a horse in 1803, and their mother to tuberculosis in 1811. He was an apprentice to an apothecary surgeon when he was 15. He received his apothecary certificate in 1816, but gave up that profession as a personal refuge to write. Keats was acquainted with the writer and editor Leigh Hunt, who introduced him to some of the leading intellectuals and writers of the time. Dogged by illness and poverty, Keats was unable to marry Fanny Brawne, whom he fell in love with and was engaged to in 1818. Keats, like his mother and brother Tom, contracted tuberculosis. He was invited to Rome by Shelley and eventually traveled there in 1821. However, his health continued to decline and he died in Rome. Thus, his writing style reflects the misery of this world, and he always dreams of finding himself. It is to be noted that Keats was a master of words, and his poems are absolutely balanced between pessimism and optimism. An introduction to Keats' letters. John Keats is best known for his odes, epics, and sonnets. But in his lifetime, he also wrote dozens of letters to siblings and friends, and he has got over 240 surviving letters. The recipients of the letters are the poet and insurance clerk John Hamilton Reynolds and Benjamin Bailey, a friend at Oxford, Keats' brothers George and Tom, and John Taylor, a member of the publishing house Taylor and Hussey, where his long poem Endymion was published. These letters typify the predominant 19th century means of communication, containing everyday inquiries about health, social planning and arrangements, and general gossip. In the letters, Keats discusses his personal relationship with poetry, his theories of beauty and truth, the imagination, negative capability, and soul making. He displays a talent for literary criticism while discussing Milton, Wordsworth, and Shakespeare. His letters also cover family connections, his joyful comradeship with friends, and his passion for Fanny Brawne, family debts, ill health, and money problems. The relationship between Keats and Shelley. Shelley was introduced to Keats by their mutual friend Leigh Hunt, who was the editor and English critic of the time. Shelley believed Keats to be a natural talent led astray by mannerisms. Though Keats found some of Shelley's advice patronizing, the two poets exchanged letters after Shelley and his wife moved to Italy. When Keats fell ill, Mary and Percy Shelley graciously invited him to stay with them in Italy, but Keats' health remained undimmed and he politely refused. After the death of Keats, Shelley wrote an elegy on the death of Keats Adonis in the year 1821. The next year, Shelley himself drowned, and a volume of Keats' poetry was found in his pocket. Keats wrote a letter to Shelley on August 16, 1820. It is actually a reply to Shelley's literary advice. This letter was also in response to Shelley's invitation for Keats to spend the winter at his home in Pisa, Italy, after finding out Keats was ill with tuberculosis. Keats knows very well that he will die if he stays at his home. He seems angry that being ill has kept him from getting up and enjoying life for so long, and declares his strong desire to visit Shelley. Keats also feels that he must do whatever it takes to get to Italy, much like a soldier who marches to a fortified area with cannons. However, Keats never does make it to Pisa and displays frustration with his illness in his letter. Keats responded to the literary advice of Shelley on some of his works. Keats is sharply conscious of the artistic sincerity and tells Shelley that most people think poetry and dramatic effect are like mammon, which is considered in the Bible as materialistic or money-oriented. According to Keats, poetry should have a higher purpose and not written in materialistic ways. Keats agrees with the writers who value beauty and art of poetry, because it is only that connects them to their spiritual selves. It can be said with certainty that Keats lived up to his aesthetic principles. Writers of the Romantic period commonly express their emotions and feelings. Keats reveals his feelings of the events happening in his life through his letter as well. Keats also expresses his strong emotion throughout the letter by the use of the words like gratified, glad, hateful, and suit. In terms of the imagination, Keats reveals to Shelley, "My imagination is a monastery, and I am its monk. You must explain my matabs to yourself." This statement clearly communicates that Keats lives within his imagination. It is to be noted, during the Romantic period, writers relied heavily on their own imagination instead of so much reliance on reason. A poet is worthy of being called a poet if he regards imagination as the only weapon to rely on. He must have self-concentration or selfishness perhaps. According to Keats, the truest expression of a poet is actually the concentration of the poet's self, which can be selfishness, but it is one of the important requisites for the production of a good poem. Thank you so much for listening to my lecture. If you find this video useful, do subscribe to my channel, and any doubts can be clarified in the comment section. Thank you.